The story of rise and fall in the world is as ancient as history itself. And while everyone aspired to reach the pinnacle of success, it requires more than just desire to achieve it. Both rise and fall occur on individual and collective level. We witness this phenomenon daily on a personal scale. To understand it collectively, we can reflect on the great empire of the Roman, Persian and Islamic eras. At their zenith, none would have imagined a day of decline or becoming forgotten. Yet, it's essential to remember that no rise is permanent and no decline lasts forever.
China. China.
China.
China. China. China.
China.
China. China. China.
Today, I want to highlight a compelling narrative right before our eyes: the rise of China and the fall of America. This is a story not of the distant past, but of the present, where we can witness the decline of a once great nation, a poignant reminder of how a community can falter. Despite their efforts, they find themselves struggling against an inevitable decline. However, in contrast, we see the emergence of a rising nation, embracing the laws of Allah SWT with courage, joy and patience, thriving and sharing this resilience with others. Now, on the one hand, look at the declining America, which has been in a state of panic ever since it heard the news of China's rise. Look at its activities over the past few decades, how its entire focus has been on countering China. If you observe their native sessions, the G7 summit and the Quad meetings, you will see a clear pattern. Consider President Trump's first term, then analyze Joe Biden's presidency, and now Trump's second term. America blocked Chinese access to semiconductors, placing Huawei under strict scrutiny, deporting Chinese individuals on espionage charges, banning tech talk, and now the tariff drama is nothing more than the fear and dread of a country under pressure, which is doing everything to prevent it from falling into the depth of decline. But when the law of nature is ready to strike you, these things can help you according to your estimation. But if not today, then tomorrow they will turn against you and make your downfall even more terrifying. And I don't know who has taught them this, that China will take away their supremacy from them by sitting thousands of miles away, while the reality is that this supremacy ends not by killing, but by committing suicide. In contrast, look at the rising China, how it is surpassing its rival, the United States, in everything. China's economy has become the fastest growing economy in the last few decades, surpassing all other economies in the world, and hardly any country has done so as quickly as it has, not even the United States. China's GDP has surpassed and became the world's second largest, and it is even predicted that it will surpass even the US. China's trade relations are so large that it has now become the most important global player. China's Belt and Road Initiative is a vast network of infrastructure in the world's neediest countries, that is beyond anyone else's control. China is challenging the current world order step by step, which has become a headache for Europe and the United States. Unlike the United States and Europe, China neither uses pressure tactics nor interferes with other countries, which is why countries happily consider their future secure in its camp. In addition, technology, artificial intelligence, robotic system, transportation, infrastructure, discipline, defense, and strong leaderships are the things that experts seem to agree on, making it not only difficult but impossible for the United States, Europe, and its allies like Japan, Australia, and India to prevent China from becoming a superpower by 2030 or even 35. And you can only understand this when you go to China and see that China is really living in 2050. This is a glimpse of the rise and fall of China and America. Earlier, I told you about the rise and fall of the Roman and Persian. But as a Muslim, have you ever asked yourself this question? Muslims have ruled the world for almost 1,000 years, and the scope of their rule was so wide that Harun al-Rashid saw the clouds and said to it, "Go wherever you would like to go. Whenever the rain falls, it will be our area." That was a time of a rising of a Muslim, and now there is a decline. No one has care for us. But why? The answer to this question is to know the trigger mechanism behind the rise and decline. Quran tells us that if you have two qualities, they will take you to the highest of ascension. Number one, if you are beneficial for others. Number two, establishment of justice. Quran says that if you have these two qualities, then it is the law of Allah SWT that He will take you to the next level. Now, as we study the rise of the Roman Empire, the Persian Empire, and the Islamic Empire, and the American Empire, it becomes clear that as long as they remain true to these principles, their rise didn't go away. But as soon as these two principles began to disappear from their priorities, Allah's second law of decline took hold of them. Don't go far. Take the example of America. There was a time when these people had a world view and their policies were made for the betterment of everyone, whether they were American or African. They valued equality, and people used to idealize them and even take pride in their settlement there in America. But gradually it started to slip from their priorities, and they turned to slogans like "Make America Great Again," and they came up with a plan to protect their own interest and loaded the rest of the people into an aeroplane like sheep and goats and sent them to their respective countries. And similarly, by looking at its own interest, it imposed sanctions on some countries and tariffs on others. Departing from the principle of the Quran, they said that our interest is more dearer to us. Let others mind their own job. The second principle of the Quran is to uphold justice. At one time, America also followed this and was active for justice not only in America but everywhere. But then gradually it also lost its priorities and it started shedding blood everywhere. the latest example of which is Gaza. So America lost the criteria of being superpower in the eyes of Allah. So if not today, then tomorrow it will lose its power and gradually become a second power from a superpower, and slowly will become a story. And yes, as long as the superpower that replaces it has these two principles, it will reach the pinnacle of power. And the day it also ignores these two principles, the pinnacle will also ignore them, push them into the depth of decline, and settle down with someone else. Therefore, if each of us individually or collectively wants to rise in this worldly life, whether we are Muslims or non-Muslims, then these two principles can help us. Otherwise, no one can save us from falling. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the opportunity to understand this philosophy of rise and fall and learn from it.